Today, we're covering a cult classic show that really puts the dark into dark fantasy. Literally, these guys are only awake at night. That's right, this time around we're covering Gargoyles. An underrated gem from the Disney animation studio, Gargoyles follows a clan of gargoyles, which, in case anyone is unfamiliar, they're mythical creatures that turn into stone statues during the day and come to life at night. This clan comes from the Scottish Highlands, but as we'll soon learn, they'll find themselves in modern-day New York and must traverse a brand new life. Gargoyles only ran for 3 seasons, from 1994 to 1997, and was sort of a step outside of the norm for Disney. It had a darker, more dramatic tone, tragic characters, story arcs are often rather complex, and in some cases, the show just feels Shakespearean in nature. As a matter of fact, there is so much Shakespeare present in the show that we've put together a Shakespearean reference counter. Keep an eye out for it. As a Shakespeare nerd myself, I can't wait. But I think that that's enough history. Let's dive right in. Our first episode, Awakening Part 1, kicks off a 5-episode introduction arc. To begin, we're taken all the way back to Scotland in the year 994 to Castle Wyvern. The castle is under siege by a band of Viking raiders, but the raiders made one crucial mistake: they attacked at night. You see, Castle Wyvern is the home of Goliath and his family, the Gargoyles, and they're sworn to protect the castle and all of those inside. Once night falls, the Gargoyles rise from their perches and quickly dispatch the Vikings.
Trespassing.
However, it seems the captain is the only one that is thankful for the Gargoyles. Princess Catherine, as well as the vast majority of other humans, view the Gargoyles as nothing more than beasts. Didn't they just save their lives, though? Kinda rude. Goliath's life partner, Demona, thinks so as well. She's grown very agitated at the disrespect that the humans throw at them, and even goes so far as to say that the humans should bow to them. One thing about Goliath, though, is that he's an incredibly wise and morally driven leader. Sure, the Gargoyles could easily force the humans to leave, but to him this would be unjust and cruel. Goliath simply accepts the fact that the humans do not and likely will never accept Gargoyles, but as long as his home and his family are safe, he's content. Following the feast, the scene shifts to a hooded figure approaching the defeated Vikings to offer a way into Castle Wyvern. I mean, the Magus was using a skull as a candle holder, surely he's the bad guy in the hood, right? We'll just have to wait and see. The following night, Demona and the captain urge Goliath to take the Gargoyles and destroy the last of the Vikings before they can stage another attack. Goliath agrees, but only if he goes by himself, so the castle will remain guarded. Before heading out, though, he steps in the middle of a dispute between some humans and the Gargoyles Bronx, Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway. It's worth noting that at this point in the story, the Gargoyles don't actually have names, but they will name themselves later on in Manhattan. That's why their names are so New York-y. Anyway, Goliath sends the young Gargoyles to the Rookery. Yeah, we just witnessed 4 Gargoyles get grounded. Goliath and his old mentor Hudson glide off towards the Vikings, but soon come to realize that they've been tricked. The tracks they've been following were nothing more than decoys. Before they can make it back to the castle, the sun rises, and they're returned to stone.
We're too late.
With a spy in the castle, the Vikings just walked right through the front gate and take over. But who was it that betrayed Castle Wyvern? Magus, surely. No, it was in fact the captain of the guard.
It is worse than that, Your Highness.
Talk about a plot twist. However, the captain's plot didn't go according to plan. The Gargoyles were supposed to have all left the castle, but with Goliath insisting that the rest remain at home, they were left there in their stone forms. The Viking leader destroys the statues, the Gargoyles that were left on their perches. Goliath returns that night to find not only his home in ruins, but his family members in pieces. We are left to wait until the next episode to see what happens next. The next episode, Awakening Part 2, is, of course, the direct continuation from the previous episode. Back at Castle Wyvern, Hudson discovers that there must have been some sort of betrayal for the castle to fall, and thankfully the 4 Gargoyles that were grounded to the Rookery last episode survived the assault. But Goliath is mad.
We will save the humans, and we will have our revenge.
You see, another thing about Goliath is that he's able to keep his emotions in check. That's why he's generally pretty level-headed and calm, like we saw in the last episode. But in a situation such as this, his entire family and home being destroyed, literally the only 2 things that he cares about, Goliath's wrath isn't something that you want to be on the opposite end of. So the survivors of the Wyvern destruction glide out to meet the Vikings and have their well-deserved revenge. As the Gargoyles swoop in, the Viking leader and the guard captain flee with the princess. Goliath meets them on a cliff face, but before he can have his revenge, the ground breaks beneath him. The captain and the Viking fall to their deaths, denying Goliath his revenge, but he reaches down and saves the princess. Goliath returns to the camp with the princess, only to discover the remaining members of his family turned to stone.
Stone at night. What sorcery is this?
In a fit of rage, the Magus cast a spell on the Gargoyles, thinking that their arrival caused the princess's death. Now the Gargoyles will remain stone forever until the castle rises above the clouds. Everyone returns to Castle Wyvern, and Goliath makes 2 requests. Watch over the gargoyle eggs in the rookery and cast the same spell on him. And so, Goliath and his family remain at Castle Wyvern for eternity. End of show. Thank you all so much for watching. Just kidding. Of course, the spell does eventually get broken 1,000 years later. David Xanatos, an eccentric multi-billionaire, purchases Castle Wyvern and has it relocated to the very top of his company skyscraper. Thing about skyscrapers though, they're tall, like above the clouds tall. So with the castle up so high, the spell is broken. The Gargoyles are in a brave new world. But before they have any time to acclimate and learn about their new home, the castle gets attacked. Man, these gargoyles just cannot catch a break. Even though these soldiers are fighting with modern weapons, Goliath and his family are sworn to protect Castle Wyvern, especially now since they are the last of their kind. It's all they have left. As the battle wages on, one of the commandos retrieves a briefcase. With whatever they wanted in hand, the soldiers make their escape. Xanatos thanks the gargoyles for his help in defending the castle, and asks them to stick around and continue to defend it from any later attack. After his experience with the guard captain back in Scotland, Goliath is a little unsure, but ultimately decides the Castle Wyvern is their home, and they will stay, albeit with significantly less trust than before. In this next episode, Awakening Part 3, a detective out of the NYPD, Alyssa Meza, ventures into the castle to learn more about the explosions and gunfire from the fight. Xanatos tells Alyssa most of the truth, that the castle was attacked by a rival corporation, but leaves out the existence of the gargoyles. One thing about Alyssa, though, is that she will do whatever she needs to in order to uncover the truth behind any case. So she sneaks her way back into the castle, where she comes face to face with Goliath. Though both parties are initially unsure about one another, Alyssa and Goliath agree to meet again, so that the gargoyles can learn more about this new world that they're living in. Alyssa takes her leave just before the sun rises, but before the gargoyles can return to their perches, Xanatos summons Goliath to his office. He has a mission for Goliath to retrieve the data that was lost in the battle before. To get this data back, the gargoyles must infiltrate 3 separate bases held by the rival corporation. Lurking in the shadows, though, a familiar face listens in on Xanatos' conversation. It's Goliath's life partner, Demona. She survived, and she's working for Xanatos? What is going on here? Well, before we can find out, the gargoyles go out on the town for a little bit of exploration. Goliath and Miss Meza meet on a nearby rooftop, flanked by Goliath's old mentor. It's at this moment that Hudson finally chooses to name himself after the river that flows through New York.
Does the sky need a name? Does the river?
The river's called the Hudson.
The streets remain relatively calm. That is, until the end of the episode, when Goliath and Alyssa are ambushed by the soldiers from before. To be continued.
What do you want?
We're just tying up loose ends.
In this next episode, Awakening Part 4, Lexington, Broadway, and Brooklyn make their return from the night on the town. When they make it back to Castle Wyvern, the clan finds himself worried that Goliath hasn't made it back. He's been a little busy fighting the soldiers with Alyssa in the park. Even though he was able to overcome the tranquilizer dart and lose the commandos, Goliath wasn't able to make it back to the castle before daybreak, so he returned to his stone form in the middle of the park.
Goliath. Goliath.
Hey, at least everybody is just gonna think that he's part of the park scenery.
I've run this path for 5 years, and I've never noticed that statue before.
Alyssa sticks by Goliath's side all through the day, and when night falls, Goliath expresses his appreciation for Miss Maze's protection. But with Goliath alive and well, he returns to the castle where his brothers are anxiously waiting for him. It's a touching reunion, and it's at this point that all members of the Gargoyle clan decide their own names. Lexington, Brooklyn, and Broadway all choose names they think suit them for their new life in New York, and give Bronx a fitting name as well. Goliath is then summoned to Xanatos' office, where none other than Goliath's love Demona is waiting for him.
Goliath, my love.
She explains that she survived the destruction of Castle Wyvern and had the Magus cast the same spell on her. Xanatos then goes on to explain that he found Demona on a trip to the original castle and was so impressed that he took her in. But wait, Wouldn't she have also remained stone until the castle rose above the clouds? How has she been with Xanatos for so long? Something is fishy here. With the family fully reunited, they all take off to retrieve Xanatos' stolen discs as a form of repayment. Demona and Goliath head towards the air fortress, and Demona shows a cruel, brutal side of herself that Goliath has never seen before.
What does it look like? I'm making sure they don't cause us more trouble later.
No! To kill in the heat of battle is one thing.
Lexington, Brooklyn, and Broadway make towards the tower in the bay. Broadway's immense strength grants them a way in, but the guys are a little less stealthy, and the episode ends with yet another to be continued. Hey, I told ya, this show loves using complex story arcs. Can't fit everything into a 20-minute episode. Our next episode, Awakening Part 5, is the conclusion to the 5-episode introductory arc. Brooklyn, Lexington, and Broadway are able to secure their disc at the tower. Meanwhile, Bronx and Hudson have to infiltrate inside an underground base. They are met with some resistance, but Hudson secures his portion of the discs by using a little cloak and dagger with Bronx. I just have to mention, Bronx is a scary little gargoyle pup, but he's somehow so cute at the same time. I mean, just look at how he loves on Hudson. Anyway, back on the airship, Demona and Goliath secure their disc, but once again, Demona shows off her cruelty. As they make their escape, Demona destroys the ship's controls, meaning everybody on board is going down with the ship. Pretty harsh. Following their completed mission, Goliath glides off to meet with Miss Mesa, who has made an interesting discovery. Turns out those soldiers that have been attacking actually work for Xanatos. The initial theft was all staged to get the gargoyles to steal them back, almost like a test of loyalty. And Goliath's moral compass makes it difficult for Xanatos to control him, so he employs his countermeasure, robotic replacements. And these things are impressive. Essentially, they do everything the gargoyles do, but better. They're made of steel, not stone. They can fly, not glide, and most importantly to Xanatos, they follow orders without question. But even still, these robotic fakes don't stand a chance against Goliath and Hudson when they're protecting their family. And when the last robot is taken out, that's when the jig is up. Over the last 1,000 years, Demona has been simmering with rage and anger towards all humans for what happened to her family. Beyond this, back in Scotland, the guard captain's plan to give up the castle and for the gargoyles to be gone was actually Demona's plan to claim the castle for the gargoyles. That's a double plot twist. She offers Goliath a chance to be by her side and rid the world of the humans, and Goliath says no. Demona fires the rocket in rage, but before she can finish off Goliath, Alyssa barrels in and tackles Demona. The stray rocket hits a tower, causing Demona and Alyssa to fall off the skyscraper. Goliath is able to catch Alyssa, but not Demona, and she falls to the ground below. Spoiler, she survives. Goliath lifts Xanatos over the edge of the castle, ready to get the revenge that he's been craving, but he's stopped by Alyssa, who says he'll be no better than Demona if he drops Xanatos. Instead, Goliath allows the billionaire to be arrested, and the episode ends with Alyssa and Goliath at the top of Castle Wyvern. Wow, okay, so those last 5 episodes were a doozy, but this next episode, Thrill of the Hunt, takes it a little bit easier. In this episode, Lexington is enamored by the Pack, a group of crime-fighting heroes on television. However, Lexington and the others don't really get the concept of television and believe these people to be real-life warriors. We soon come to find out that yes, these people are in fact great fighters, but they aren't the honorable, valiant heroes like how they're portrayed. Instead, they're grizzled mercenary types that have simply taken on a contract to perform for television, but they are itching for a real fight. So you can imagine their excitement when they get an anonymous letter with nothing more than pictures of Goliath. A real hunt. Lexington, Brooklyn, and Broadway attend a live show of the Pack, and Lexington takes it upon himself to use this opportunity to formally introduce himself, hoping to achieve some new allies in this new world. However, the Pack isn't looking to befriend the gargoyle and instead use him to lure Goliath into a trap. Back at the Pack's entertainment headquarters, they've rigged up what they call the gauntlet to destroy Goliath and Lexington, but the two manage to escape. The Pack give chase, but they find themselves on a roof covered in gargoyles, like the stone statue kind, not really the living creature kind. Goliath and Lexington use this to their advantage and hide in plain sight, taking out each member one by one until eventually they can make their escape back to the castle. Lexington feels awful, like he's been betrayed, and rightfully so, but Goliath assures him that his heart was always in the right place. Being a part of this new world is hard, and they can't do it alone. For our next episode, Enter Macbeth, the gargoyles face off against a brand new foe. Though he's in prison as of right now, Xanatos finds himself worried about having the gargoyles that are all staying at his home, so he hires a man named Macbeth to get rid of them, and this guy is good at what he does. Without even breaking a sweat, Macbeth takes down the entire clan and captures Brooklyn, Bronx, and Lexington, while Goliath rides off off to save his comrades, Alyssa convinces Hudson and Broadway that Castle Wyvern is no longer a safe place for them to live. However, they can't leave. The book that the Magus used to cast spells in Xanatos' hands. Meanwhile, inside Macbeth's estate, Lexington finds a way to get Bronx out of his cage to go find help. Soon enough, Goliath finds Bronx running the streets of Manhattan and is taken to Macbeth's home. As he fights Goliath, Macbeth makes his true intentions known. He's not fighting the Gargoyles simply because Xanatos hired him, but because he thinks this will be a good way to draw out his true enemy, Demona. Of course, Demona has cut ties with their former clan, so his plan proves completely fruitless. In fact, Goliath is able to overpower Macbeth and escape the castle with the imprisoned Gargoyles. As he leaves, however, he finds that Castle Wyvern is no longer his home. With Xanatos out of prison, Alyssa has found a new place for them to stay, an old clock tower that rises high above the city. Though he is angry at first, Goliath realizes that so long as he has his family, he's home. This next episode, Reawakening, closes out Season 1, with Demona and Xanatos doing their Frankenstein impression. What are they bringing to life? None other than Goliath's own brother, who will go by the name Coldstone.
It's alive! Alive!
Coldstone was an original gargoyle inhabitant of Castle Wyvern back in Scotland that was destroyed by the Vikings. But through the use of Demon's sorcery and Xanatos' technology, they've resurrected him as a sort of gargoyle cyborg hybrid. That is intense. Demona convinces Coldstone that the destruction of their clan came about thanks to the betrayal by Goliath, and sends him off to destroy his brother. The two face off on the streets, but Goliath tells Coldstone the truth. Coldstone finds himself at a sort of crossroads between Goliath and Demona, and the parties agree to sit and discuss. Demona, of course, won't let things end peacefully and arrives shooting. She and the Steel Clan, those robots that Xanatos created, blast Goliath and Coldstone into the freezing river. It's at this moment Coldstone chooses his side and saves Goliath from drowning. Coldstone's resurrection proves short-lived though, as Demona fires once again on Goliath and Coldstone blocks the shot, sacrificing himself for his brother.
Enough of this.
By the end of the episode, Goliath has come to terms with his new home and a new realization about his duty to protect it. For Goliath, the entirety of Manhattan is his new Castle Wyvern. It is his duty to protect all who live there. To kick off Season 2, let's jump into the episode Metamorphosis and introduce ourselves to Derek Meza, Alyssa's younger brother. Derek wants to step out of the shadow of his older sister and take control of his own life, and for him, that starts by working for Xanatos. This, of course, comes with more dangers than he could have ever imagined. Chief among those dangers, genetic mutation. You see, Xanatos' quest to harness the power of the Gargoyles has led to the hiring of the geneticist Anton Severius to create a new creature that matches their power. Severius has been hard at work, but has been secretly conducting live experiments on real people behind Xanatos' back. One of these live experiments is a woman named Maggie Reed, who is mutated into a winged cat-bat sort of creature. Naturally, she's terrified, and she's trying to escape. That's when Brooklyn and Broadway swoop in to try and help. This only terrifies the poor girl even more, and she's taken back in by laboratory guards. Xanatos is furious with Severius' deception, and when Derek is shot by a syringe filled with the mutagen, Xanatos forces his scientists to rush an antidote. However, before Severius can finish the cure, Brooklyn, Goliath, and Broadway smash into the laboratory and set the test subjects free. In the process, they also inadvertently kill Severius, meaning that no cure can be devised for Derek. Fully mutated with no cure in sight, Derek, now known as Talon, blames the Gargoyles for everything. At Castle Wyvern, Talon and the other mutants fight the Gargoyles, and Alyssa vows to take down Xanatos for what he did. But it was just a big misunderstanding for Xanatos, right? Wrong. It's revealed that Severius' death was fake to keep up appearances for Talon in order to keep him under his control. Man, he is good. I mean, he's a bad guy, but he is good. In this next episode, Legion, Coldstone lives, but he's seriously going haywire. Intermittently, he seems to black out, and another personality entirely takes over his body. There are three personalities that seem to be fighting for control, and well, this is because Coldstone's body wasn't put together from the remains of a single gargoyle, but actually three of them. The three inside Coldstone, of course, don't have names, being gargoyles and everything, but they were given names behind the scenes during production, so we're gonna use those. Of course, there's the original Coldstone, or Othello, brother to Goliath. There's Desdemona, who's Othello's life partner and rookery sibling to Goliath. And lastly, there is Iago, brother to Othello and a seriously manipulative guy. Iago was always doing what he could to deceive Othello into turning on Goliath. He did this by making him believe that Desdemona was leaving him for Goliath. By the way, this whole deal about deception and the falsified love triangle are plot points in the actual Shakespearean play Othello. Anyway, these three gargoyles inhabiting one mind, you can imagine the serious turmoil that what's going on inside. To help his brother, Goliath has Lexington rig him up to the Recap, or the Reconnaissance Emergency Cyber Automated Probe, which allows the user to delve into any sort of cyberware through the use of virtual reality. You know, I really thought this was a fantasy show, but I think sci-fi is more suitable. Anyway, Goliath delves into Coldstone's mind and finds that Iago and a Xanatos computer program are trying to get the other gargoyles to merge together so that they will be subservient. And they nearly succeed by deceiving Othello in the same way that Iago used to back in the day. However, Othello trusts in his heart and in his brother to fight back against the programming. Goliath is barely able to make it out of the system. And even though Othello and Desdemona aren't completely free, they're simply happy to have one another. Man, that is a much happier ending than the actual play Othello. In the next episode, Mirror, we get introduced to yet another new character, Puck, when Demona steals an ancient magical mirror from a museum. Puck is a member of the Children of Oberon. Who are the Children of Oberon? Well, to put it simply, Oberon's children are another race, the third race, which is essentially a collection of all manner of mythical and magical beings, fairies, elves, even mythological gods in some cases. The nature of the Children of Oberon is really complex, since they are beings of pure magic and don't actually have flesh and blood. Instead, they can use their magic to shapeshift into forms that humans can perceive, and it's because of this that they're usually at the center of legends and folktales. Whew. Okay, so anyway, Demona has used the ancient mirror to summon one of these Children of Oberon, Puck the Trickster. Demona forces Puck to cast some spells on her behalf, but as his name implies, Puck is a tricky little guy. So when Demona wishes for Alyssa the human to never exist, Puck just turns her into a gargoyle.
Be no more as you were formed.
Elisa!
Demona doesn't quite understand the ramifications of her request, and so she wishes the same thing upon all of the humans in Manhattan. How does that saying go? Be careful what you wish for. Demona is naturally very unhappy about Puck's deception, and tells him to turn all the gargoyles human, and her wording once again backfires, as Goliath and the Manhattan clan are then all turned into humans. Human Goliath and Gargoyle Alyssa band together to take down Demona. After their victory, they offer Puck his freedom if he undoes the spells. After weaving a bit more magic, everything is returned back to the way that it was. Well, mostly. You see, Puck had one final gift to offer Demona, the ability to turn human during the day. In this next episode, Eye of the Beholder, Xanatos finds love. Well, sort of, not really actually. I don't think this guy is really capable of love, but nonetheless, he proposes to his flame, Fox, former member of the pack. And I gotta say, probably the least romantic proposal I've ever seen. I mean, the guy doesn't even have a ring, just some fancy necklace. Well, as it turns out, this fancy necklace is actually a legendary artifact known as the Eye of Odin, and according to legend, it's meant to grant great power and insight to any who wield it. However, the magic of the necklace hasn't presented itself. That is, until this very episode. You see, after Xanatos gave the necklace to Fox, it seemed to sort of wake up and gave Fox the power of her innermost self. And this isn't some sort of spiritual journey that granted Fox inner peace, quite the opposite actually. Instead, it transforms her into a horrifically feral werewolf. Werefox. Of course, this whole ordeal, the proposal, the Eye of Odin, it's all just another experiment to Mr. Xanatos. I told you, he's incapable of love. Xanatos, though, didn't realize just how powerful the magic in the eye would be, and so he enlists the help of the gargoyles to take down Fox and hopefully get the eye back. Goliath and Xanatos corner the werewolf on a roof and hold her down on a nearby billboard. With Fox weakened, they manage to rip the Eye of Odin from her neck. Thereby ending Fox's transformation. And in a shocking twist, Xanatos gives up the eye to Goliath in exchange for Fox. Okay, I guess that's close to compassion. Continuing the theme of love, this next episode, Vows, sees Xanatos and Fox's proposal fulfilled with a marriage, with Goliath being Xanatos' best man and Demona being Fox's bridesmaid. They gotta be up to something, right? Outside of Xanatos' love life, we also get a glimpse into the romance that Goliath and Demona once shared. Back in Scotland, Goliath and Demona witnessed the exchanging of rings that humans practice, and took their own spin on it. Demona splits a talisman in half, giving one piece to Goliath, and keeping one for herself as a gesture of love. Hey, it's better than a necklace that turns you into a werewolf, okay? Plus, this talisman, just like Fox's necklace, is more than it seems. This is the Phoenix Gate, another magical artifact. and it's capable of sending its users through time. And with both Goliath and Demona at the wedding, they now have a full Phoenix Gate. Now look, you may not be a romantic guy, but for their honeymoon, Xanatos uses the Phoenix Gate to take Fox back in time, and you know what? That's a pretty cool trip. Obviously though, this isn't really their honeymoon. It's actually a time-bending plot where Xanatos gets himself a relic from the past, a coin from Prince Malcolm. Now, bear with me for a second, time travel stories get really complicated. So Xanatos helps a Norman ambassador stave off some bandits and saves Princess Elena, Prince Malcolm's bride. The ambassador escorts Xanatos and his party to Castle Wyvern where the wedding is being held, and for his help, Prince Malcolm gives Xanatos some coins. Now, these coins aren't worth that much at that point in time. However, Xanatos instructs the Norman ambassador to send the coins to David Xanatos in the year 1975, and to then send instructions on how to carry out the plot he's currently playing out 20 years following that. All of this is done as a roundabout way to jumpstart the Xanatos fortune in 1975. Oh, and just to make things more complicated, the Norman ambassador and David Xanatos are members of the Illuminati. That's why the ambassador helps him. Yep. You heard that right. Members of the Illuminati. And trust me, we'll make sure and to get to them. Surely that's all the time-bending shenanigans behind us now, right? Well, no, not really. You see, Princess Elena was given a gift by her father before the wedding, the Phoenix Gate. And back in this timeline, a man known as the Archmage needs to get his hands on it to obtain ultimate power.
I'll need only the eye of Odin to secure the ultimate magical power.
Demona is the Archmage's apprentice and glides off to retrieve it, but is interrupted by her future self. Demona then takes, Demona through the future to show what will happen to her clan in an effort to get her past self to take action. Demona from the past is disgusted by the Demona of the future and refuses her words. She and Goliath fight her off, and Demona swears not to try and change the timeline. The past Demona then keeps the Phoenix Gate for herself and uses it as a symbol of her love for Goliath. The time-traveling party then take their leave of the past and return to the future where nothing has changed. Well, I guess at least the space-time continuum is intact. My brain, however, not so much. But we better strap in, because this next episode, City of Stone Part 1, kicks off an epic 4-episode story arc. In this opening episode, Demona begins her most ambitious plot yet. Xanatos and Owen get Demona on televisions everywhere to cast a spell that will take a minute from the lives of everybody watching.
Omnes.
Demona. It's on every channel.
However, as it turns out, Demona has tricked them, and is instead casting a spell that will turn everyone to stone. City of Stone. Everyone in the city turns to stone. I get it. Interestingly though, this massive plot actually takes a backseat to the true story of this episode, which revolves around what happened to Demona after the massacre at Castle Wyvern back in Scotland. Of course, she didn't have the Magus cast the same spell on her as she said she did. Demona was heartbroken seeing Goliath and her former clan turn to stone forever, so she plotted her revenge against the humans. But it wasn't easy living or anything. They stole from humans, lived in the shadows, and did their best to avoid a man simply known as the Hunter, someone who's devoted to hunting and destroying the Gargoyles. One night, Demona is approached by a trio of decrepit old gargoyles who give her information about the whereabouts of the Hunter. These three are actually shapeshifted witches known as the Weird Sisters. More on them as the story progresses. For right now, the sisters send Demona off to fight the Hunter, who has been sent to assassinate the High Steward Finlay by Prince Duncan. Demona fights off the Hunter, saving 2 young nobles in the process, but ultimately loses sight of the Hunter. Now, what does any of this have to do with anything? I'm sure you're wondering. Well, the young noble that Demona just saved is good old Macbeth, the very same Macbeth that we met last season. Don't worry. How Macbeth managed to live for over 1,000 years will all be explained as the story arc progresses. The next episode, City of Stone Part 2, takes us back to Scotland, where an older version of the young Macbeth is seeking out revenge on Gilcomgain for killing his father and taking away his love. In the process of their fight, Gilcomgain reveals himself to be the Hunter, and Demona swoops in, looking to end the perpetual battle between them. Ultimately, Demona overcomes her old foe, and her life is saved by Macbeth in the exact same way that she saved his in the previous episode. With the debt repaid, the two are now even, and Demona's rivalry with the Hunter is done. Or so it would seem. In the present, the ramifications of Demona's statue spell play out, and man, they are brutal. While Goliath and the Manhattan clan soar the skies searching for her, Demona is wandering the streets smashing statues of humans. Xanatos is actually the first to find Demona, but before he can put a stop to her, the Hunter appears from the shadows.
I'm canceling your show.
I think not.
Demona!
The Hunter.
This rivalry seems to have been going on for ages, as Demona remarks about how many times she's got to put down the hunter. The two fight all across the city before Demona eventually loses her rival. Goliath and Brooklyn arrive fashionably late to the television studio where they find Xanatos. The two parties realize that Demona's power is beyond anything they are capable of stopping, and so the two team together once again, just like old times. In the next episode, City of Stone Part 3, pieces of the past begin to slowly fall into place. King Duncan of Scotland, aka the new hunter, finds himself at odds with Macbeth when the weird sisters appear to them. They describe that Macbeth will too become king, sowing seeds of distrust between the two cousins. So much distrust, in fact, that King Malcolm marches on Macbeth for war. Macbeth knows this battle is beyond him, and so he seeks out the three witches for aid. At this same time, Demona, who is sick of living a fugitive lifestyle, also seeks out the witches. With the two parties together, a bargain is made, sealed by the magic of the witches. Demona is granted her youth and vigor at the cost of Macbeth's youth.
Their acceptance are they consigned, unto each other's fate design.
For her part of the exchange, Demona is sworn to protect Macbeth, and to ensure this, any pain or damage inflicted upon Macbeth is felt by Demona and vice versa. This essentially makes both parties immortal. Neither can die unless it is by the other's hand. So that explains how Macbeth is around in the 1990s. This pact proves immensely powerful. With their combined forces, Demona and Macbeth are able to stave off and end King Duncan's rule over Scotland and place Macbeth himself on the throne. And Macbeth's rule is actually really beneficial for Demona and her clan. Macbeth, of course, holds a great deal of respect for gargoyles, and even makes Demona the primary advisor to the throne. Things seem to be really looking up. I wonder how it could have all gone wrong. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, Goliath and Xanatos seem to be preparing for a war of their own. The next episode, City of Stone Part 4, all of our questions are answered. It's been 37 years that King Macbeth has held the Scottish throne, and the English are at his doorstep. Canmore, former prince to the former King Duncan, has returned as the hunter seeking vengeance. When he told tales of gargoyles to the English, they were quick to rally to his cause. This has ushered in questions about whether or not the gargoyles should be allowed to live with such prestige. And so, Demona preemptively betrays Macbeth, believing that he will soon betray her. Demona abandons her post at the defense of Castle Moray, allowing Canmore to take over. Macbeth, of course, had no intention of betraying his ally, and by allowing Canmore to take over, Demona has effectively allowed Canmore to destroy her own clan. So wait, Demona betrayed Macbeth thinking he would betray her, but instead she was the one betrayed by the man she betrayed Macbeth for? Alright, this is too much cloak and dagger for me. Why can't they all just get along? Canmore then stabs Macbeth through the back, killing both he and Demona. But that's not how the pact works. Only Demona can kill Macbeth, and only Macbeth can kill Demona. However, Macbeth's son Luic has already been given the crown, and so Macbeth must flee the country to avoid any superstitions about sorcery and questions about his quote-unquote death. Everything's falling into place. In the present day, Xanatos has learned of the qualifications for the spell. Humans shall turn to stone every night until the night sky burns like day. So he devises a plan that will see the sky set ablaze, effectively ending the spell. However, Demona isn't going to let her plan slip through her fingers again, and she rigs the machines Xanatos and Goliath are using to explode too early. That's when the hunter, Macbeth, arrives on scene. Just as Demona has been seeking revenge over the last 1,000 years, Macbeth as well has been seeking his revenge against Demona. Goliath and Xanatos break into the castle, as Demona has her final bout against her longtime rival. Just when it seems like Macbeth will fulfill his vengeance, the weird sisters appear out of thin air, morphed into 3 little girls. They, as well as Goliath, remind Macbeth that death won't solve anything, won't bring back anything that Macbeth has lost, and how death has actually proven to be the only wrong answer throughout his entire story. Gilcomgain, Duncan, his own. They then remind Demona how her quest for vengeance has only ever led to more suffering. Demona gives up the code to revert her sabotage, and is one of the most heartbreaking moments in the show.
Give us the code.
The access code is alone.
The code she created was one word: alone. Look, I know Demona's the bad guy, but there is a part of me that feels really, really bad for her. 1,000 years of sorrow on her own, and she's so blinded by rage that she doesn't even realize it. But hey, at the very least, Demona and Macbeth can finally rest. Like literally, they're put to sleep by the weird sisters and teleported somewhere far away. Xanatos reverses the spell, and Manhattan is no longer a city of stone, ending this awesome four-parter. In this next episode, High Noon, Lexington has been seeing what he's able to do to help his gargoyle brethren inside Coldstone. However, before he's ever able to make any headway, Demona and Macbeth steal the body. Wait a second, Demona and Macbeth, weren't they just trying to kill each other? And didn't the weird sisters take them far, far away? Yes, and yes. Answers will be coming soon, so, just sit tight. As of right now, the two are using Coldstone in another of Demona's plots to show Goliath just how little he means to the humans. For this goal, Coldstone, with Iago in control, is essentially used as bait to capture the gargoyles. From here, Demona meets with Alyssa and leaves her with an ultimatum. Show up in Central Park at noon, where the gargoyles will be turned to stone, where she and the gargoyles will meet their demise, or don't show up and, I guess show Goliath that he means nothing to Alyssa? So wait a second, the plan is to show Goliath something in the middle of the day when he's a statue and can't see anything just to kill him and Alyssa? Well, it's simple. It doesn't make any sense. Demona is able to walk around during the day because of the spell that Puck cast on her, and she is the gargoyles in their most vulnerable state. Why would she not just take them out then? Why not just take out Alyssa herself without all the fanfare? Despite how clearly bad this plan is, it's actually Othello taking over Coldstone's body that causes it to all crumble down. Demona and Macbeth ride off back to his mansion, and the gargoyles are safe. Okay, what gives? Nothing that just happened made any sense. Matter of fact, it doesn't make any sense to Demona or Macbeth either. Well, that's because it wasn't supposed to make sense. You see, Demona and Macbeth were taken away by the Weird Sisters, and they had another spell cast on them to make them work together. But the Weird Sisters weren't trying to end Goliath and the Manhattan Clan. The real goal for Demona and Macbeth was the retrieval of 3 special items: the Grimorum Arcanorum, the Eye of Odin, and the Phoenix Gate. As far as why the Weird Sisters want these items, well, that remains to be seen. For this next episode, Revelations, let's talk about the Illuminati. The secret organizations that run the world from the shadows and whatnot. Now, as I'm sure you have gathered, this show has a lot of moving parts: flashbacks, time travel, witches, the whole 9. One of the more interesting of these moving parts are the episodes dedicated to Matthew Bluestone, Alyssa's partner, and his search for Mace Malone. Mace Malone is a crime boss and alleged member of the Illuminati. Spoiler alert, he is. Detective Bluestone has been on the search for a long while now, and leads have seemed to mostly run dry. That is, until his former partner, Martin Hacker, provides a lead on Malone's family. This eventually ends up with Bluestone meeting with Malone face to face, where all is revealed. His investigation hasn't gone unnoticed by Malone or the Illuminati, and it's proven really very impressive. So impressive, in fact, Malone is prepared to offer Bluestone full-on membership into the shadowy organization. However, one does not simply join the Illuminati. First, the two will have to exchange acts of good faith. For his half, Malone tells a tale that Bluestone can't believe, that gargoyles exist, and that Alyssa knows about them. Wow, way to keep a secret, Malone. Of course, Bluestone confronts his partner about this, and Alyssa reveals all about the gargoyles. And it's a good thing, because for Bluestone's act of good faith, he must bring a gargoyle to Malone at the Hotel Cabal. Here, Malone has set up essentially a house of horrors that is designed to break the minds of anybody on the inside, and plans on getting any and all information he can out of Goliath. But Bluestone isn't going to just let Goliath suffer. Instead, he gives Goliath the key needed to traverse the hotel with ease. In doing so, he effectively turns the tables on Malone, leaving him trapped inside, while he and Goliath escape. I mean, that's all well and good, but I don't see how that got Bluestone any closer to the Illuminati. And well, that's because it wouldn't have. But remember Martin Hacker? The guy that gave Bluestone the information in the first place. Turns out he too is a member of the Illuminati. And for Bluestone's aptitude for discovering the truth, Hacker inducts him among their ranks. Hey, this is the Illuminati we're talking about. It makes sense that there are a lot of hoops to jump through to get in. For this next episode, Double Jeopardy. Think back to the earlier part of this season. Anton Zavarius was tasked with creating a gargoyle from scratch, but he simply couldn't do so without a living gargoyle to draw DNA from. Well, in this episode, Zavarius finally got the live sample that he's been needing. Flesh and blood from Goliath himself. With this one small sample, Zavarius has been able to create what is essentially a clone of Goliath. But this isn't just a clone. Rather, a specimen created and bred specifically for David Xanatos' needs. You see, gargoyles age incredibly slow, so Zavarius modified some genes to have Thalog age faster. Throw in some very specific Xanatos-produced education, and you've got yourself one intelligent beast, and this beast is known as Thalog. Yes, that's just Goliath spelled backwards, mostly. Creative. Anyway, Xanatos has wanted some capable henchmen from the very beginning. Goliath's sense of justice got in the way, so he created the Steel Clan. However, the Steel Clan's robotic nature turned out to be very limited because they didn't have free will to make on-the-fly decisions. villains. So he created Thalog. But as it turns out, the free will thinking he needs in his creation turns out to be Xanatos' undoing again. Yes, just like Goliath, Thalog turns his back on Xanatos. Thalog isn't quite like Goliath though. Instead of betraying Xanatos for moral reasons, Thalog simply wants his freedom and $20 million, but that's beside the point. Thalog traps Severius, Xanatos, Goliath, and Alyssa on an old abandoned oil rig that he's set to explode. Of course, our heroes and villains escape from the rig, but Thalog is left on board whenever it explodes, seemingly dying in the explosion. But I'm sure we'll be seeing him again soon. Seems like all of our villains have made a comeback before. Get ready, folks. This next episode, Avalon Part 1, kicks off another multi-episode story arc, and this one has enough time-bending shenanigans to melt your brain. So a strange Scottish man in full-plate armor has arrived in Manhattan. No, we aren't talking about Macbeth. This is Tom, and he's here looking for Goliath. Now, we met Tom ages ago, 1,000 years ago to be precise, back in Castle Wyvern. At this time, Tom was a young boy, and really one of the only friends to the Gargoyles among the humans. But wait, how is he here in 1990s Manhattan? Did he have a spell cast on him by the Weird Sisters? Well, no. But to explain everything, it's time for a flashback. After the Wyvern Massacre, Tom, his mother Mary, Princess Catherine, and the Magus were tasked with ensuring the safety of the Rookery eggs. Their first stop on this quest was to find safe lodging from King Kenneth, Catherine's uncle. However, their time at the castle was short-lived thanks to the devious Lord Constantine. You see, Constantine was playing a sort of Game of Thrones. He would pledge his love for Lady Fenella to get close to the king, just to stab the king in the back and lay his own claim on the throne.
Throne. Long live the king.
However, he really had eyes for Princess Catherine and had plans to make her his queen and use the gargoyle eggs to ensure that she would obey him. Long story short, this guy sucks, and Princess Catherine and the others from Castle Wyvern have no intention of sticking around. So, they sneak out of the castle, and the Magus takes them somewhere far, far away. The Isle of Avalon, home of the Sleeping King. More on him soon. Now, the thing about Avalon is that it's basically another realm altogether, somewhere in between what is real and what is magic. Here, the survivors of Wyvern, as well as Lady Fenella, are greeted by none other than the Weird Sisters, who are acting as guardians to Avalon. There's one issue. Magus cannot bring the Grimorum Arcanorum with him to Avalon since it's human sorcery and not magic of Oberon. The Magus turns the sisters into owls and gives the Arcanorum to Fenella and Mary, who take it back to the human realm. Ooh. Okay, so with all that in mind, we now know what happened to Tom after the Wyvern Massacre, but how is he alive? And what does he want with Goliath? Well, on Avalon, time moves slower, like much slower. So Tom has basically just lived a natural amount of time, just in a different realm where time works differently. And he's here to bring Goliath to Avalon to protect his children. Yes, the eggs from the Rookery hatched, and they're alive and well in Avalon. However, there's something terrible brewing in Avalon, something that we will get to in the next episode.
He's found the eggs.
Where?
Avalon, Part 2, reveals the big threat to Avalon, the Archmage. Remember him? The guy that wanted Demona to steal the Phoenix Gate, but we didn't really know why. We never really discussed the Archmage, but there's quite a bit of history behind him in Goliath. Specifically, the Archmage and Goliath found themselves at odds when the Archmage stole the Grimorum Arcanorum and poisoned Prince Malcolm in the year 984. Goliath thought that he had rid himself of the Archmage following this battle when he fell down a ravine, but as it turns out, he was saved by himself. Bear with me for a second. So the present-day Archmage used the Phoenix Gate to travel back in time to save himself from his death.
Halt!
He then takes his younger self on a tour of time to direct him on what he needs to do to achieve his primary goal: ultimate power over the whole world. Lofty goals there, pal. There are 3 specific items that he needs to achieve this. Firstly, the Phoenix Gate. Secondly, the Grimorum Arcanorum. And lastly, the Eye of Odin. Wait, these are the items that the Weird Sister stole in that episode that makes literally no sense. As it turns out, they've been working for the Archmage the whole time, even back when they linked Demona and Macbeth. Plot twist. Now behind those items, the Archmage also needs some allies. Demona and Macbeth, who are now under the control of the Weird Sisters, and he's going to need a base of operations, Avalon. There's just one problem. Tom and the others have already taken Avalon, so he has pretty much all of these items except for the castle. But all the Archmage has to do is take it. Shouldn't be an issue, right? I mean, the guy has ultimate power. power. Well, Tom has Goliath, and if we've learned anything about Goliath, it's that he can overcome just about anything. The next episode, Avalon Part 3, sees the battle for Avalon play out. Before really getting into that, though, there's one final character to introduce, Angela. Angela is, by all intents and purposes, the child of Goliath and Demona. I mean, not really. In gargoyle culture, every child belongs to the clan as a whole, not just like two parents. But I mean, come on, she looks just like Demona and has that same gray-blue skin stone as Goliath. That's his kid. Come on. So anyway, Goliath formulates something of a stealth mission to defeat the Archmage. Angela and Gabriel, another of the hatchlings from the Rookery, are to set up a distraction for Demona and Macbeth while he goes directly for the Archmage. Back at the castle, Alyssa and the Magus come up with a sort of contingency plan in case something goes wrong, which of course it does. For this plan, Alyssa and the Magus decide to call upon the sleeping king, who is meant to awaken when his country needs him most.
King of all Britain, you are needed.
Now, I'm sure anyone that recognized the name Avalon has already figured it out, but the sleeping king is none other than the legendary king of Britain, King Arthur Pendragon himself. That's right, the Knights of the Round Table guy. They aren't here, though. Alyssa awakens King Arthur from his perpetual sleep to assist in the defense of Avalon. Back at the castle, our heroes reconvene to come up with a new plan. But before long, the Archmage and his forces attack. Demona attacks the injured inside the castle, and outside, Macbeth and King Arthur face off in melee combat. Now, there's a fight you probably never thought that you would see. In both cases, our heroes manage to get the better of the other. The Magus, as well, is able to completely trap the Weird Sisters inside of King Arthur's resting place. That only leaves the Archmage and Goliath. While the Archmage is a formidable foe, it's the talismans in his possession that give him all of his power. So when Goliath rips away the Eye of Odin, the Archmage cannot contain the power of the Grimorum Arcanorum and crumbles to bits before Goliath's eyes.
Oh, my lovely magic!
Avalon has been rid of its intruders, but unfortunately in the battle the Magus channeled too much power and bids his final farewell to his friends in King Arthur's chamber.
Cannot leave me now.
Never, my princess.
No, Magus.
With his children safe, Goliath takes his leave of Avalon, and Angela decides it's time for her to see the real world. She journeys along with him, ending this three-parter. In this next episode, Shadows of the Past, the Avalon World Tour begins. Following the events of the previous episode, Goliath, Alyssa, Angela, and Bronx tried to leave Avalon for Manhattan, but the magic around Avalon had other ideas. You see, when leaving Avalon, you do not get to pick where you want to go. Rather, Avalon sends you where you need to go. And so, over the course of the next mini episodes, Goliath and crew, hereby known as the Avalon Travelers, will visit places all over the world. This tour is a long one, so we'll keep this brief. Their first stop is back to somewhere familiar, Scotland, specifically the location where Castle Wyvern used to be. Here, Goliath is haunted by the ghosts of his past, the Viking raiders, the captain of the guard, even his kin that were destroyed during the Wyvern massacre. As it turns out, the spirits of the Viking captain and the guard captain were dwelling here, waiting for Goliath so that they might swap places with him and live again. However, the guard captain pays his dues for the original betrayal by turning on the Viking, saving Goliath.
What are you doing? I've been given a chance to atone.
There were 2 men in there. They couldn't have survived that.
In our next episode, Heritage, the Avalon Travelers made their way to Canada. Here, they meet 2 more children of Oberon, Raven and Grandmother. All is not as it seems on this little island. Raven presents himself as a gargoyle to Goliath in an attempt to sway them to his side so that he might take over the island. He portrays Grandmother as an evil entity, but that could not be further from the truth, as she generally spends her time eating the humans that live on the island. Raven's deception is eventually uncovered by Angela, and the Travelers convince Natsalane, the chieftain of the island, to duel Raven in one-on-one combat. Raven loses, and is thereby forced to leave the island. Our next stop is Monsters, where the Avalon Travelers find themselves back in Scotland, specifically in Loch Ness. Now, I know what you're thinking. Goliath and the Travelers meet the Loch Ness Monster. Come on, guys. Let's be reasonable. Do we really think a show where Shakespeare's Macbeth lives for 1,000 years and fights King Arthur would really be so unrealistic as to have the Loch Ness Monster? Well, duh, of course it would. And there's not just one, there's 2. Beyond this, Anton Severius is here, and he's got his very own own mechanical Loch Ness monster that he's using to try and capture the mythical beast, and he's nearly successful. But with some help from Goliath and Angela, both Nessies are set free, and Anton's mechanical abomination is destroyed. In this next episode, Sanctuary, the Avalon travelers find themselves in Paris, where they learn what happened to Macbeth and Demona following the battle on Avalon. Well, with the weird sister spell broken, surely they're at each other's throats again. Nope, they're in love. You see, Macbeth and Demona have absolutely no recollection of the events that happened while under the weird sister's control. So Macbeth doesn't know that Demona has the ability to turn into a human during the day. These two are so in love, in fact, that they're set to be married within the coming days. But, of course, this whole debacle is just another plot set up by Demona. But she's not alone. Working alongside Demona is the big bad Thylaug. Told ya he was gonna come back. Last time we saw Thylaug, he accrued some massive wealth at the hands of Xanatos. Thylaug and Demona, well, they decided to combine their wealths under one company name, Nightstone Unlimited. Even these two combined fortunes aren't enough to fulfill Thylaug's greed. So he and Demona work together to butter up dear old Macbeth into marrying human Demona so that his fortunes can also be liquidated into Nightstone Unlimited. At the wedding ceremony, Macbeth is flanked by his henchmen Banquo and Fleance, and he officially weds Dominic Destine, aka Demona. Not long after, though, the deception is revealed as Demona shifts into her natural form.
Part of a magical pact we avowed long ago.
She and Thylaug trap Macbeth in his own home so that he can be declared dead. This would send all of Macbeth's assets directly to Demona. Jeez. But that's not all. There's yet another plot twist. Thylaug had planned on double-crossing Demona by pitting her and Macbeth against each other. He had hoped the two would tear each other apart and finally end it all. This would then place all of Demona and Macbeth's assets into Thylaug's pocket. Don't worry though. Goliath and the Avalon Travelers step in and put a stop to everything before anything gets too brutal. You gotta feel for Macbeth though. He really thought he had found love for the first time in 1,000 years, just for all of it to be a ruse. In the next episode, Eye of the Storm, the Avalon Travelers are taken to Norway where they come face to face with none other than Odin himself, who is in search of that which is rightfully his eye. Rightfully his eye. That's right, the Eye of Odin isn't just some fancy name for a fancy artifact, it's Odin's actual eye. Now, something worth mentioning here, Odin is, of course, a god of Norse mythology, but he's also a child of Oberon. His fantastic and magical nature just led him to being worshipped by a group of humans. Anyway, Goliath fears that if anyone else has the Eye of Odin, they will cause as much havoc as Fox or Archmage did, so he keeps it to himself. Fighting Odin, though, is no easy feat, so as a last-ditch effort, Goliath puts on the artifact. This turns Goliath into a more intense version of himself.
Unhand her, old man.
You see, at heart, Goliath is a protector, but with the eye, he becomes more of a tyrant than anything else. He locks his friends away in a cave while he searches for Odin to completely destroy him, and he nearly does. Oh, I see what he's getting at. By destroying Odin, he can no longer threaten his friends. But killing a god? It's a lot harsher than anything the normal Goliath would do. Angela and Alyssa think so too. So after escaping the cave, they track down Goliath and convince him to take off the eye. Odin gets his eye back, and Goliath returns to his normal self. Let's hope Odin can control his artifact better than the last 3 users. In this next episode, Ill Met by Moonlight, the Avalon Travelers make their final stop on the tour, Avalon. However, upon their arrival, the Lord of Avalon himself has made his presence known. The one, the only, Oberon. You know, like Oberon's children, father to all things magical, it's that guy. And he is not pleased to see that his home is currently being occupied by the Avalon clan of Gargoyles. He's quick to deem their presence irritating, and is ready to simply eviscerate them with magic. However, the good lady Titania, former wife to Oberon, steps in to give the mortals a chance. Instead of a simple eviction, the Avalon clan will be given an opportunity to win their right to live in Avalon by winning a hunt of sorts. If Oberon is successful, Titania will once again pledge herself to Oberon's side as wife. Should the Gargoyles win by, quote, sounding the bell of your defeat, keep that in mind, Oberon will be given another kind of ring. Now, Oberon is the lord over all of Oberon's children. You know, the third race, everything that is magical in nature, blah blah blah. So being the lord of all magic, essentially, Oberon is a fiercely proficient wizard and gives intense chase to Goliath, Angela, and Gabriel. However, the quick-thinking Tom and Alyssa come up with a counter to Oberon, an iron bell. You see, all of Oberon's children and Oberon himself are vulnerable to iron. That's how the Magus was was able to trap the Weird Sisters during the battle for Avalon. With this in mind, Tom, Alyssa, and Catherine forge a bell of iron, and upon its ringing, Oberon is defeated. How did they know to do this? Titania, of course. Alyssa caught on to that specific line, sounding the bell of your defeat, and she took it as a clue. With Oberon defeated, the Avalon clan is free to stay. In this next episode, Future Tense, Goliath and crew finally make their way back to Manhattan, but everything is not how they once knew. The Erie building, the skyscraper that Xanatos built the castle on, has been expanded dramatically, and the city itself seems to be near ruin. In their time away at Avalon, 40 years passed in the real world. This means Goliath wasn't around to help the Manhattan clan foil Xanatos' usual antics, which has allowed him to take over the city, and soon the world. Man, we leave that guy alone for a few episodes, and all of a sudden the world is in danger. However, all is not lost, as the Manhattan clan leads a rebellion against the tyrant. Well, what's left of the Manhattan clan at least. We sadly lost Hudson in the earlier years of Xanatos' rise to power. Broadway lost his eyes. Lexington is now a cyborg.
Hudson dead?
Don't yell at him, Brooklyn. He's back now.
No time for explanations.
Oh, and Demon and Brooklyn are in love. Goodness. A lot can change in 40 years, but with Goliath back at the wheel, surely there's a way to stop Xanatos. So the remnants of the rebellion sneak into Castle Wyvern, where they discover Xanatos is nothing more than a computer program. At some point in the past, Xanatos himself was killed alongside Hudson, so his downloaded personality took over the reins. In cyberspace, Xanatos and Goliath fight for control that ultimately sees the Xanatos program destroyed. So the day is saved, right? Xanatos is defeated and can no longer threaten the world. Well, yes, that would be the case, if not for one little detail. Lexington was the mastermind the whole time. I know, it's a plot twist. Lexington commands the Xanatos program to download on every computer in the world, thereby ensuring world domination. The world falls under Xanatos and Lexington's control. The only way to stop this is to use the Phoenix Gate to go back in time and rewrite history. Alyssa practically begs Goliath to give her the gate, but will not take it herself. This tips off Goliath that something is off about Alyssa, and he's right. As a matter of fact, something's off about this whole thing. Turns out the whole thing is an illusion created by Puck as a way to get Goliath to give him the Phoenix Gate. Oberon's children can't just take things from humans. Goliath reawakens on the boat and destroys the Phoenix Gate. I think that was like a triple plot twist. Jeez. For this next episode, The Gathering Part 1, a once-in-a-lifetime event is starting. The Gathering. This event is held by Oberon, where he calls back all of his children to Avalon. Think of it essentially as like a family reunion. All are present and accounted for except for two notables, Puck and Titania. So Oberon leaves for Manhattan to find his wife and his estranged child. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Fox and Xanatos have a new baby, Alexander Xanatos. Aw, that's sweet. Both families are in town to celebrate the new child, but this child is not really what it seems. Matter of fact, Fox's half of the family isn't exactly what it seems. Turns out Fox's mother is none other than Titania in disguise. Therefore, there's magic in Fox's blood. So wait, this makes Fox and Alexander children of Oberon too? Yes, exactly. And Oberon wants to bring Alexander back to Avalon so that they may be trained to use his magic. Talk about drama. Of course, Xanatos and Fox aren't going to just let Oberon take away their child. And luckily, Owen sets up some serious defenses before he made his hasty escape. Wonder what's going on with him? Well, we're just gonna have to wait till the next episode to find out. Great job waiting. Here's the next episode, The Gathering Part 2. Oberon shows off just how powerful he really is while he tries to take Alexander. Owen's defenses hold off the Lord of Avalon for a while, but even with the Gargoyles, the Iron Clan, and some help from Fox's father, Oberon finds a way inside the Erie building. It all comes down to a final showdown with the Gargoyles at Xanatos' atop Castle Wyvern, and despite being outnumbered, Oberon nearly defeats them. That is, until Owen makes his dramatic return. Wait, the assistant? Look, another guy's super smart, but what's it going to do against Oberon, king of all things magical? Wait for it. Owen actually has been Puck in disguise the whole time. So, as it turns out, some point in the past, Puck, disguised as Owen, found himself in the employment of Fox and Xanatos. He was so intrigued by the endeavors of the two that he couldn't resist making himself known and offering a deal. One wish, or a lifetime of service. Xanatos obviously picked the lifetime of service. Oberon, however, is not amused by Puck's story and throws him aside before teleporting directly to Fox's room with Alexander. As Oberon tries to force Fox to hand over the baby, her dormant powers finally unleash, and she blasts Oberon away. This magical outburst proves to be enough of a showcase that magic can be harnessed on Earth for Oberon to be convinced to leave Alexander at home. And to ensure that the baby's training goes smoothly, Puck is placed in charge of his education. This next episode, Hunter's Moon Part 1, kicks off what is widely considered to be the series finale of Gargoyles. In this episode, Alyssa's been switched to day shift and must train up a new partner, Jason Canmore. Their first mission together brought them to one of Xanatos' many warehouses where they stop a band of thieves from stealing a chemical known as the DI-7 compound. We aren't entirely sure what exactly this compound is, but it must be important. When the sun sets, Goliath and the Manhattan clan split off into two groups to defend the two warehouses holding the compound. And wouldn't you know it, Demona arrives. She always seems to be the one behind just about anything going on. She and Brooklyn fight it out, causing the warehouse and the canisters inside to explode. But Demona did manage to escape, canister in hand. As for the other group, they aren't met with thieves or brigands or anything. Rather, they find that they are more the prey in this scenario than anything else. Remember the hunters? Gilcomgain, Prince Duncan, and Canmore from a few episodes back? Well, turns out that those men and the ideals of the hunter have lived on. And there's three of them. Gargoyle sightings in Manhattan have brought them here, and they want blood. Specifically, Demona's blood. Unfortunately, they mistake Angela for Demona and leave her horrifically wounded. And we know the lengths Goliath is willing to go to protect his family, especially his daughter. Gotta say, I don't think I'd be placing any bets on the hunters. Hunter's Moon Part 2 continues directly from the last episode. However, before getting into it, I'd like to mention something about Goliath and Alyssa that has kind of flown under the radar with the rest of the shenanigans in the show. There's a bit of a budding romance. It's mostly unspoken between the two, considering Goliath is a gargoyle and Alyssa is a human, but nonetheless, sparks fly pretty much anytime the two are together. So you can imagine Goliath's rage upon seeing Alyssa and her new partner kiss in her apartment. This anger fuels Goliath in confronting the hunters head-on with Brooklyn and Lexington. Definitely a lot more reckless than our usual Goliath. This, of course, leads to their capture, as well as the capture of Demona, who's there to end the 1,000-year vendetta against this faction. And for the first time since the Wyvern Massacre, the Manhattan clan and Demona actually work together to escape the ship. Goliath, though, is fueled by rage and a thirst for vengeance, and makes sure to send a message by taking out two of the three hunters. Unfortunately, this backfires. The two hunters are okay, and when the third arrives, they concoct a plan to attack the clock tower itself. It's at this point the mastermind of the hunters is revealed to be none other than Jason Canmore, Alyssa's new partner and descendant of the original hunters. The three of them fly over to the police station and fire rockets at the clock tower. We are then left with a billow of smoke and the dreaded to be continued. Wow, maybe I underestimated these guys. Hunter's Moon Part 3 concludes Season 2 of Gargoyles. Following the explosion in the last episode, the Gargoyles survived thanks to Lexington finding the tracking device. Unfortunately, the clock tower was completely destroyed and the public is fuming. Up to this point, the Gargoyles were really nothing more than urban legend. You know, like alligators in the sewers kind of stuff. But now video evidence is circulating all over the news and the people blame the Gargoyles for everything. Goliath is still out for revenge though, and tracks the hunters to a dam. Here, Goliath's rage and anger sees him fling Jason off of the dam and Alyssa. He's unable to save either one and both are presumed dead. John Canmore, Jason's brother, swears revenge and doubles down on the whole gargoyles are evil thing when he uncovers a plot by Demona. She stole the DI-7 compound for a reason, and that reason is the annihilation of the entire human race. Wow. Through the use of the compound, some magic, and some ancient artifacts, Demona plans on casting a spell that will wipe out everybody except the gargoyles. The hunters track her down to St. Damian's Cathedral. Right behind them are gargoyles. Right behind them are the police. And right behind them are the people. So, yeah. Everyone's here. Brooklyn tries to stop Demona while Goliath and the rest of the clan fight off the hunters. Just when Goliath is on the verge of enacting his revenge, Alyssa and Jason walk in and put a stop to everything. Jason seems to have a change of heart, and he sacrifices himself for Goliath so that he can stop Demona.
It has to stop.
And he does just that. Goliath destroys the sleeping gargoyle statue, the trinket that will protect the gargoyles, causing Demona to stop her plan altogether. The people outside are on the verge of a riot, so the gargoyles make a hasty retreat, narrowly escaping the police thanks to none other than David Xanatos. With the clock tower destroyed, Xanatos offers the Manhattan clan a place back in Castle Wyvern. No strings attached, as a thank you for 1, saving his son, and 2, saving the world. Everything comes full circle, as Goliath and his family are back in their home. Alyssa and Goliath cap off the show by sealing it with a kiss, finally acknowledging their feelings for one another. Our next episode, The Journey, kicks off Season 3. Following the confirmation that gargoyles do exist last season, the public has been reeling. Not everybody hits the gargoyles. Matter of fact, Lennox Macduff, aka Macbeth, has actually taken to TV to try and defend them. However, the vast majority of people are terrified of the idea that gargoyles do walk among them. But one John Castaway has taken things a step further. This Mr. Castaway has taken it upon himself to rid the world of gargoyles and has rallied a number of people to his cause. This new faction, the Quarrymen, hunt and destroy any gargoyles that they can find with their fancy electric hammers. Wait a second. A faction dedicated to hunting gargoyles? Sounds pretty familiar. That's because John Castaway is actually John Canmore, the hunter from the end of last season. Castaway and the Quarrymen find Goliath this episode, and their hunt brings them to the old clock tower. Here, one of the Quarrymen named Vinny actually sees the error of his ways and assists Goliath and Alyssa, leading to Castaway being, well, cast away. And he rides off on the Quarryman chopper. I'm sure that we will be seeing more of these guys. This next episode, Angels in the Night, sees the gargoyles fully branded as public enemy number 1 thanks to the Quarrymen. Goliath and his clan were framed from the explosion and destruction of a construction site that was owned and operated by John Castaway. In all reality, the gargoyles were led into a trap that presumably killed the whole clan except Angela and Bronx. Thankfully, Xanatos was watching the gargoyles' backs and saw what Castaway was planning. After some bribes and deception, Xanatos managed to put a safeguard in place that saved the gargoyles' lives. It's great, the gargoyles are alive and all, but any potential they had for being accepted by humans has just gone out the window, especially now that Angela is en route to be tried for the crimes that she didn't commit. Well, Angela's survival wasn't in the plans for the Quarrymen, so they set out to destroy both her and Bronx on the passenger train. Alyssa and the DA are on board with them, as well as hundreds of innocent civilians. This doesn't stop the Quarrymen from blasting at the train, nor does it stop Castaway from destroying a bridge that the train is set to go over. Goliath manages to subdue Castaway and free the rest of the train from the engine car. Brooklyn then takes the jetpacks off the Quarrymen and uses them as a sort of brake system and stops the rest of the train from falling into the ditch. The DA comes to recognize the Quarrymen as the true villain and drops any and all charges levied against the gargoyles. Beyond this, for saving countless lives, the general public finally offers Goliath and his clan the recognition and appreciation that they deserve. If only they knew half of the threats these guys have saved them from, huh? Nonetheless, Goliath and his clan could finally call Manhattan their home without hiding in the shadows. And with that, our coverage of gargoyles has come to an end. As always, we appreciate you watching and have an awesome day. See ya!